Okay, so tonight we're going to be talking about faith. And so I will start with the first step of faith, and I will first describe what faith is. So when you think of faith, you might be thinking like Santa Claus or something like the Easter Bunny, or like believing in something because you feel like it's like a good idea. Like you're like, oh, I feel like I want this. But the Bible says faith completely differently. It says in Hebrews 11:1, if you could pull it up. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Now, I want to point out two words there, conviction and assurance. And in some translations, it says evidence instead of conviction. So when you're looking at faith, it's not this feeling that there is a God. It's built off of a reason, an assurance and a conviction, evidence. Now, there's a story of Abraham, and it's later showed in Hebrews 11, if you could turn to that. Abraham is the founding father of the Israelites. He's the chosen nation of God. And in Abraham's life, he's just this man walking around with his wife, and God comes to him and he says, I will give you a child, and through this child, I will make this mighty nation. Now, he had that child at the age of 90, which is a miracle in and of itself through the work of God. But God said to Abraham, sacrifice that child for me, as a means of testing his faith. And Abraham said yes. And he went up there to sacrifice his child, and he did this out of faith, and he reasoned in his heart, that God could raise his child from the dead. And he knew that because God was faithful to him, and God is powerful, and that no matter what he does, no matter what God says, he can trust him. Now, this is what faith is. It's built off of a reason, the reasoning that God could even raise the dead. And looking into this, I will give my reasons, my convictions. Well, not all of them, because I could talk for hours about them, but not to flex my knowledge of it, but because there's many reasons of knowing that God exists. And I'll give 3. So my first one is a philosophical, which is like thinky kind of stuff, but I'm gonna simplify it. So if you look at me, look at my hand, look at my face, you know, we got a whole lot of something, okay? We got a whole lot of something, and you start adding on, you look at the people around you, and you're looking at the sun, the stars, and the universe, and all this stuff, and it's so complex, and it's absurd how crazy it is. And then you got people that don't believe in God, and you ask them, where did this come from? And they say, nothing. Now, am I to believe that all of this came from nothing? No, it came from God. There must be a God. Reason number 2, this is historical. I would say many historians accept that Jesus existed, okay? And if you accept Jesus existed, he has all these miracles in his life. Now you have, he turned water into wine. He healed the sick. He healed the demon-possessed. He walked on water, and he was resurrected from the dead. And many historians are like, nah, I'm not going to accept that. But Jesus did exist. But they're missing one thing. All of the prophecies, centuries before Jesus' existence, that said this man would be born in Bethlehem from a virgin mother in this area at this time from the tribe of Judah, and you can stack on all these prophecies, and the historian says this man existed, and that's divine. God, there must be a God to that. All these prophecies that said he would exist. Reason number 3, testimonial. Now you can look at your friends. Look to the side of you. Now you got some Christians in here that put their faith in Jesus Christ, okay? Now, you see all of the things that happen in everyone's lives, the struggles and the addictions, whether you're addicted to porn or suicidal thoughts or whatever you're struggling with, all these people, they struggle and then they change. And you say, how did that happen? And if you ask your friends, which your friends can give their testimony to people, they will say, God did this in my life. And you go to millions of Christians, you go to people who are murderers, people who are suicidal, people addicted to drugs, people on the streets going around mething, and they change their lives. They change their lives, and you go to them and you're like, how did this happen? How did this crazy man, God, change my life? And that there must be a God. So you have three reasons. We got something, there must be a God to make that something. You got historically, Jesus existed. His existence is divine in and of itself. And then the third reason, testimonies of those around you. Now, you can look at these reasons and you can be like, oh, well, that's illogical. But the only people that will accept the evidence and the truth are the people that want the truth or the people that want God to exist. But if you don't want God to exist in your life, you can just deny it all. And I'm a doubter. I took the AP test. Matter of fact, any test. Matter of fact, like all of school, I'm just like, I cannot do this. I'm scared. And I don't believe in myself. But when I doubt in God, I look into those doubts and I find the answers to my questions. And if you don't want to believe in God, then you can just deny it if you want. You know, you can just say, you know what, this sounds a little hocus pocus. I don't want to listen to the reasons. You can say, maybe there's a reason out there. I'll put my faith in a reason out there that says maybe there isn't a God. A blind faith. And in reality, you're missing something. Because the main reasons to believe in God are not just the logic, but you look at your life without God and you are thinking about what am I going to do tomorrow? Why am I here? I'm sad and I'm lonely. I'm sitting in my bed and I'm crying because I don't know. I have this hole in my life and I am left alone. And I say, why don't you believe in God? And you say, I don't want to. Why? Because there's so much that God brings to your life. Jesus Christ says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He says, come, you weary. He says, my burden is light. And he wants peace for you, and he's coming to you. And he died on the cross, and he said, for God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son to die for you so that you could be saved. For whoever believes in him can be saved. And I ask you, why would you not want to believe that? And you ask your friends, why would you not want to believe that? But it's their choice to believe, and it should be a choice that they make. And that leads to the second step of faith, which, if you kind of switch sides, which is trusting God after you trust that he exists and that Jesus is the way to him to begin with.
So Austin just laid out why we can believe in God, why we can have assurance that God is real. But I'm going to tell you something. Even the demons know God is real. It's not enough to know that God exists. You have to trust him with your entire life. But you're like, okay, how do I do that? Imagine this. You go to buy a chair from somebody, doesn't really matter, and you're like, oh, this chair looks good. Can I test it out? And he's like, it's good. It's stable. I would sit in it, but then the guy doesn't sit in it. Do you think he actually believes that that chair is sturdy? The point I'm trying to get is that in order to truly trust something, you have to be willing and able to put your full weight on it. So in the same way, if we're not willing to put our full weight on Jesus, do we really trust him? And that leads me to my main point. To trust Jesus, I must put my full weight on him. And now you're like, okay, how do I put my full weight on him? The first thing you can do is know his record. When you want to know if somebody is trustworthy, when you want to know whether or not you can trust somebody, you look at what they've done in the past. You look to see whether or not they've made true on their promises and on their word. In the case of God, he's made true on every single promise. We know this by reading the Bible. This is how you can know God's record. That is his record. You read through the Bible, you read of him upholding his people. He says, I'm going to take the Israelites out of Egypt, and he does it. He says, I'm going to send my son to die for my people that they may be brought to me, and he does it. Time and time again, God always keeps his promises. So to put my full weight on Jesus, I need to know his record, and I need to surrender control to him. Often in our lives, we want to be in control of the things around us. Even the things that are completely out of control, we're like, man, this would be better run if I controlled it. But the thing is, we all, as humans, have bad judgment. We have all made decisions that are not the right decisions. God has never done that. Everything God does is good by definition. So when we surrender that control to him, we are surrendering to the better decision maker. So, to put my full weight on Jesus, I need to know his record, I need to surrender control to him, and I need to bring everything before him. I didn't really go over the verses in the last ones, but I am going to go over this one. Philippians 4, verse 6 through 7 says, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God." That means in everything, no matter how small, no matter how silly it might seem, no matter how big, no matter how bad, bring all of it to God. No matter what it is, bring it to him so he can help you deal with it. The second part of the passage is, "And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." This means that when we bring our life to God, when we trust in him, when we give everything that we have to him, the exchange that we get is the peace that we can't even begin to comprehend. That's a pretty good deal. Go back a slide. I want to explain the verse I had there. So Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." That "be still" there is a command. It's not a command to just be rigid and not move. It's a command to be calm. When Jesus calmed the storm, he said, "Peace, be still." And the reason is because he is God. It says, "And know that I am God." We can have that peace, we can have that calm because God is in control. And when he says, "Know that I am God," he's saying, know that I'm the God who brought you up out of the pit into new life. So, to trust Jesus, to put our full weight into Jesus, we have to know his record, we have to be willing to surrender control, and we have to go to him with everything we have. So, essentially, to trust is to put your full weight into it. To go back to the chair. If you aren't willing to put your full weight into the chair, you don't trust that chair. You're all sitting on the chairs right now, though, so clearly you trust the chairs. It should be that way with Jesus. Put your full weight into him, and he will give back to you a millionfold. You will have peace like no other, and you will have salvation in eternity.